Hey everyone, I'm here with another video. This is the second game between Master and Ke Jie. The colors have been flipped from last time. I think the last game was really interesting. I heard that Ke Jie thought that loss was quite painful, I guess. He played this game right after. I actually saw this game live. My impression when I was watching was that Ke Jie was actually very upset. Of course, it's online and there's no way I really know, but like a lot of the moves in the opening felt like they were played in like 1 second. Like the time settings, if you're not familiar in Thai game in pro games, tend to be on the really fast side, like 20-second Byoyomi periods with no main time type of settings, or maybe like a minute. But Ke Jie was like spending zero time. It was just like 20, and then it was like still 20 or 19 when he would play his first moves. And it was really funny, like as the game went on, his time would start just dwindling down to the last second. So I feel like maybe he was a little upset from the previous loss, but I think he's still obviously a very strong player. So it's really interesting, I think, to go over this game nonetheless. We see this kind of start point and then this 3-4 point opening again. In the past, we've seen White play 2 start points here in other games, but in this game, White opted for a 3-4 point. Black approaches, White approaches. This is interesting. This is a really relatively old open. I mean, I used to say it wasn't that old because at the time I was playing, it had only been around 5-10 years old. Now it's almost like 20 years. I think this was fairly common in the 90s. We'd see these in, way before the 90s. It was also common in like the 60s and 50s to have these kind of 2 approach shapes. I have a book that says, when in this shape, black should pincer and then white should pincer here. And this is a natural development because when black jumps, the white jumps. The M4 stone is helping to coordinate with this. And this is the natural way. And white doesn't want to play this because it's small and black's taking the larger side on the left, and M4 is already doing its work. It's reducing the bottom potential, etc., etc. But here, white chose a different pincer. This is also a very nice pincer. These days, compared to it's kind of interesting. There's obviously Progo kind of follows fashions or fads. They also kind of follow a similar train of logic. And I'm talking modern Progo. Of course, older Progo has their own theory on the opening too. It's just we see this kind of thing where like for a while everyone's playing one space high pincers because that's the most severe move, and we're trying to get an advantage in Tenuki. Like everyone's fond of Tenuki, so we'll play the one space high pincer, so it's harder for them to Tenuki. We get a better result. Then people were like, actually, we can fight and make decent results locally if they do that. So let's play the 2 space high pincer to back off and keep pressure on, but it's more balanced. And then we're like, actually, we need to emphasize the other areas. So let's play 3 space pincers. And then most popular these days tend to be the 2 space high is kind of what we've resolved on, but a lot of players still emphasize the 3 space because 3 space basically emphasizes the least of the local and most of the development for the other areas. And development is really big. We see in Masters games he really favors development. Like in the center, in the early corners, he really, or it or she, it's an AI, I guess, so it really favors the early development. Black double approaches here. I found this questionable. I think Ke Jie has some special strategy in mind. Obviously, it puts pressure on the corner and it makes M4 stronger, so it should be more severe to attack P3. The thing is, in general, Go 3, this kind of double pincer is usually not a good idea because the idea is that you're making this group here that is basically just serving a purpose of really pincering, and pincering is not to make groups, it's to apply pressure. If you're applying pressure, you shouldn't need to make yourself that strong because you're going to be jumping up into the center and attacking your opponents. So it's kind of like maybe a wasted effort, a little over-concentrated. So I'm not sure. I've seen Ke Jie play some very new thinking, maybe in a nice way, openings in the past, and sometimes they work out for him, sometimes they don't. I'm not sure if this is something he's familiar with. But I thought it was just interesting to point that out. White kicks. If we follow the normal way, black should extend, white should jump, black plays here. We see M4 is kind of weird. Like, if we already had this formation, we'd much prefer to play the most severe pincer we can against the bottom right, since we already have this backup. So this might be a little bit not as good. And since white has Sente, we could just lean on this to make ourselves stronger, or just here maybe. Right. Oops. Or if black doesn't want to get surrounded here, but then we notice that this is like really over concentrated. And this wall is hard to use. Even though we can come in here, it's not like a great attack because we're still 3 spaces away. But black came here, which I guess is Ke Jie's way of dealing with that, trying to make a loose connection. But this fighting ends up really good for white, because even though we go for this trade, which at first it looks like, oh, you know, this is really close to white's Poneki. This is not good for white. If we go a little further, black has to come back and take the stone. And if we look at this now, oh, this is really close for black. Okay, so that's roughly even, this over-concentration. But white took this stone and got the corner. Black took a stone here, white took a stone here. So that's roughly even, but white took the stone in the corner. And white's going to take... Like, locally, white could play b2 and get a better local result. But b2 is relatively small. So white plays here to settle p3. So it looks like it's roughly even. And white got Sente. And again, if we had this position like this, we'd want to play the most severe pincer we can to attack the bottom right. But since it's like this, white has a little bit more flexibility in handling the p3 stone. And since obviously this group's already very strong, we can afford to make it stronger. Like if we extend, just play like this, and settle our group. It's pretty alive. And then we could take Sente. Maybe here, close. I'm not sure what's best. Even Hana once is nice. And then even if we just say something super simple, I think this opening is a really big success for white. This thickness is not very useful because this is super strong, so it's hard to use. So Ke Jie develops the right. This is obviously the larger direction, and M4 might be damaged, but the bottom position is going to be okay. So we continue like this. But so far, I'm like, if we think about the opening in general terms, this bottom left is generally even up until here. These are both star points, so we're just looking at the local result of this fighting. These exchanges seem very questionable to me for black. So still kind of not liking that early double pincer idea, but I'm not sure. Ke Jie kicks, this is important, base of both groups, pretty normal. But white tenukis. And again, that's part of it is like, black doesn't have a great local follow-up. Like this, sure, it's a nice shape. We just push like a couple at once and then come here. We still have good shape, and in the future we can easily make 2 eyes here. I don't know what, like this, to take away the base, but then we still have to take away the other side, potentially. And we can still run into the center, you know? I guess you don't have to take the other side, but like, this is hard to attack. And there's the potential to play here, which is threatening the Ko shape, which is good for ice. You know, if you go here, the Ko is still here. So, I don't know. I think the kick is still proper, though. You have to take away the base of the group. Or you just say, I'll leave it for now, and it's just a strong group. So maybe it's a mistake. If the group is strong, maybe it would be better just to take a big point somewhere else. White approaches, black backs off, basically saying, yeah, it was not the most biggest place. White Hanas, and now black says, nope, my group's alive too. Because if you play here, right, black's still pretty happy. This is like a normal 4-4 invasion follow-up. Like, if we change the numbers, this is here. Little far approach, back off, and then an invasion. And then we just play normal Joseki. There's an extra stone here. But, so yeah, so black tenukis and saying, okay, my group's alive. If you come in, I'll just block. Or maybe jump out. It depends on the situation. but locally just blocking lives and is quite big on points. But white follows up here because, again, big. You notice this move's a lot better than my move. My move still has a cutting point and is short on liberties and makes black stronger. This move doesn't do that. This move just takes the base, which is what white wants to do, and doesn't give black the better moves. Okay, yeah. So black could Hane. It improves the shape a little, but might also lose you some points in the long run because of the follow-ups over here. But at this point, I think black doesn't want to play this now because this space has a lot of bad Aji with the S4 stone in place. So black kicks. The idea is that if white backs off, then we get a pincer. It's basically a symmetric position, but we got the first move, which is nice. But white says, nope, my 1 stone versus your 3 stones. These are bigger. I'm inclined to agree, because if we go like this, this is really big. This is also really big, though, especially if black gets this. So I'm not sure. My feeling is that if black plays here, though, maybe white will make an exchange first, and then it's not quite as big. Black came on this side, though. That's the other thing. If black comes here, maybe we just live and try to envelop it on a large scale. So this one forces white to jump, which means it's smaller scale, profiting on the corner. Still, though, I'm questioning whether this is really bigger than this, because from an efficiency standpoint, black has 3 stones inside. We can remove 3 from white, but this looks like it would have been invadable. So black lost some Aji. Whereas this upper right, we remove maybe 2 stones from this. The Aji is not too different, really. There's still like kind of a 3-3 invasion and haunted possibilities. So I'm not sure if it's really better. And if we consider, you know, black Hana, obviously this exchange is bad for the influence, but that doesn't seem anywhere near as damaging as making these exchanges to me, reducing that invasion possibility. So, and also Q11 is a little bit close if we consider this as a total structure, you know. So this trade doesn't seem good to me as black, but it does make F14 nice, so I don't know. But black maybe thought the same thing, or maybe Ke Jie just said, oh, I want to run out together. So he plays here to peep, but this seems very heavy and hard to me. We just see this cut for Aji. Opens up the P2 cut, which might have some implications. And cut here. This is a very common kind of shape, this cut with the Q11 stone. It often arises from pincering Joseki. And if you know your Joseki, white should attach. Black extends. White has 2 options. White can extend, but in this case, maybe black would descend because this is already has an eye. So you'd have a very heavy group. So instead, the other option is for white to Hana and just live directly, which is what white does. Black Hanas takes the outside, and white plays this peep. I'm not sure completely why black can't just counterattack. Because if black has to answer, then this peep is really poorly timed, because even if you follow up, it looks like white dies, and if this happens, then this is like a profit for white. So I'm not sure, but Ke Jie answers, so there must be a reason, I guess. White Ataris and kicks to get out, and then comes back here. So white's basically alive here. There's also a little bit of potential in the corner if this group ever gets like really alive to do something like this and threaten to link up and maybe live. Like you have to kill it, but then they have these kind of problems. But we see much, but obviously that's very small scale, much later. Strategically speaking, this top side is obviously the most important area because white's alive on the left. So white kicks. This is pretty normal. Black extends, and then normally we would back off, but this gives black a very nice top formation. And so, have you ever heard this phrase? There are no Joseki for Meijin, which basically is what's happening here. White plays this. It's not really a pincer. I'd call it more of a wedge. Yeah, this is. If you're a Q player, this is terrible. If you're a Dom player, maybe you found a good game. But for most players, this is not a good combination. But it makes sense here because white's already really strong here. So the normal follow-up for black, which we'll see in the game, is this attachment. Black's going to get a lot of strength here, but it's hard to use if white's strong on both sides. Locally, this is a loss for white, so normally it doesn't matter if that's the case, though, because white's losing a lot of stuff locally. But the problem is here, black also invested in this wall, so the K17 is performing double duty in this case. If you wonder why doesn't, white just pincer directly, then we're giving up a lot of points in the corner. The double approach will result in something similar to getting sealed, and there's a lot of weak points and both sides are alive, so it's similar to the game. But if black takes the corner, we're losing points, and if we follow a normal situation, now we kind of need to add a move because this is far, and our wall can still be very useful for making reduction moves like this and developing the center. So that's the idea behind the kick. But again, very easy in retrospect. Beforehand, you're like, if you're taking Go lessons, your teacher's going to say, never do this. So, no Joseki for Imaging, right? So this is a normal kind of sacrifice sequence. And black plays here. You often see players will Atari right away. Yeah, okay, you could do that. You could also not. And because later there might be possibilities to play a move like this or other type of endgame moves, maybe. And white's never going to play this Hane, usually, because it helps black. You're getting a first line move for a second line. You're getting like one. Well, first one is 3 points, but the influence is worth much more than 3 points. So usually not a good exchange. White Hane is for Aji. This opens up the peep in the corner later. It also opens up some eye shape if you end up running out. It opens up the Atari, which can help. Help in the center if you need it. Typically, this is a little bit of a loss in terms of local points, but it opens up so much Aji that it's not a bad thing to play. Also, in terms of other things, so white played here, so I can explain my point still. If you don't make this exchange, black just plays here, and you can't do too much, really. The other thing is, black can just link up under. Either way, you have a hard time with this group. Actually, that's the main thing. Yeah, black can just link up under. Black's very solid. If you make this exchange, black can't link up under because you have the counter Atari. So black's forced to go over. But if you go over, that gives white the possibility of maybe running out with these stones and making some kind of sacrifice complications here. Or if the outside is for some reason not a concern, I don't know when it'd be, you could live here, but that's probably the rarer case. Anyway, so it's a good exchange. White plays back here and black caps, keeping pressure on the group. This is a really nice point. This shape over here has some cuts, so it's important to defend. Typically, in the left shape, black should add a move here or here, but the problem is then white will extend. Corner Aji, this group's kind of feels like you should connect these, but now this is obviously too slow, but just from a conceptual point, this wall is totally useless and still has a weak point here. 3-3 is open, and it feels like black stones are just really inefficient. So the cap's a nice move for combining attack and defense. White wants to settle, so they attach. And this is a nice attachment. If black connects like this, black can't really connect like this because you're short on liberties. So black pushes up, cuts, and now we're starting to see, this is really complicated first off, but we have to save the 3 stones. This gives white an opportunity to push out and link up this with these stones with this group. Obviously, we're sacrificing the top. Potentially, black needs to add a move, and your corner is not completely alive, and there's a cut here. So yeah, so basically this cut is really big because black has to take care to save these 4 stones. Gives white the chance to take these 3 stones, all the original center potential black had, and there's still like first of all, this endgame at f18 is now Sente, which is huge. Still cutting points here. And the center potential is gone. And the corner is isolated with a cut push here, which means that there's some endgame technique here that white can exploit. So even though white gave up these 4 stones, this is a really big success for white. Don't ask me to read what black should have done better. I have no idea. This move is really big. If black plays anywhere, first of all, this push, like, black can't block because of the Ataris, and white can save these, or maybe just actually connect. Black has to defend, and now black is dead. So black pushes up. White just plays a good endgame technique. If white does this one directly, there's a potential, I don't know where black plays, but there's a potential to make this into a ko. Like this. If you descend, I guess here you're okay, but the thing is you still have to add a move, and this one actually looks really risky. Like this kind of stuff. I guess you're fine, but a lot of bad Aji there. So by changing this move order first, you get this in Sente. You actually still preserve this on it too. It just makes it more guaranteed. White comes back and cuts. Again, there's still really bad Aji here. And shortage of liberties on these two, obviously. So black has to push to defend that. But at this point, I think white's territory lead is too big. We just see some normal, typical endgame. And at this point, Ke Jie resigns. Yeah, primarily because, this left side is really huge. Having captured these 3 stones gives white headway into the center, which means that black can't develop too much. This bottom is really huge. This is open. This is open. Yeah, that's basically it. This is not even Sente because this is taken off the board and this stone got captured. So, yeah, this game's pretty tough for black. Of course, when I say like white's ahead, like pretty far ahead, this is considering their professional level. Generally, anything over 3 points is really hard to make up. Now, that might sound like a very small margin because amateurs lose games by like, I don't know, tons of points all the time. Personally, like for me, my margin is like if it's greater than 5 or 4. I mean, okay, look, it sounds weird to say like, oh, my margin is greater than 4 and pro margin is greater than 3. But like that extra point margin is actually really huge, like in terms of comfort. Because it kind of comes down to the size of your mistakes. It's like at my level, mistakes tend to be like 2 to 3 points on average. So if you average out the mistakes, it tends to be like a couple points. Pro levels, their mistakes are like 1 to 2 points, and those average, maybe not even those, like maybe less than 1 point mistakes, which don't worry about if you're not familiar with fractional endgame stuff. But yeah, so that kind of margin, it's actually really hard to get down because it's averaging over a larger size of mistakes. So yeah, anyway, sounds close. It's actually not close, not really close. 4 points is still pretty a lot more leeway than 3 points. My point being, if you're a Q player, this game probably looks far from over to you. As a professional, as a strong Dom player, for me, like, I will continue playing and hope my opponent makes a mistake. But for Ke Jie, this is probably really hard to come back from. And actually, this game looks to me is not even 3 points. This is like 5 or 6 points, like Komi basically. And we put it in those terms, Komi. Like if you're Komi above your opponent, that means like your efficiency was so good that your opponent, or so much better that your opponent has essentially ended up passing somewhere. If you want to think of it that way. Anyway, I think this game was really interesting because to me it looks very classical. Just the evaluation of size, about the size of groups. Especially this opening stuff with the double pincer, which again, yeah, typically not considered good go theory, but And we see like a very classical punishment of it. It's not like some out of the blue thing, and I'm not sure what to make of it. Like, was Ke Jie just like really tilted after the first game, or did he have like some special strategy to try to throw White off? I don't know. Nonetheless, we see some really beautiful technique, and like this kind of idea that anything in Go can work in the right circumstance. Even though we're really often taught, don't tenuki this shape, well, we tenuki this shape, you know? And it works out because this stone has added efficiency from the extra circumstances. Excuse me. So, Go is broad, Go is wide. It's weird to say, not anything's not possible, but anything can be possible in the right situation. So that's why it's fun. That's why it's really hard, and we're always pushing to better understand it. And so I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope you learned something. And I will see you all next time. Bye.